All right, let's try that again. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trauma Talk in 10. I had to restart the video, and so I'll put some details in the video later, but I wanted to go ahead and get started for any of you that are watching me live. So, welcome. My name is Bonnie Barclay. I am a therapist in Knoxville, Tennessee, and owner of Creekside Counseling and Wellness. As usual, just feel free to grab anything to write with and take some time to jot down anything that resonates with you today. Also, be sure to check out my post for this week as I'm going to be putting out there more information that I talk about in the talk today. So, today I wanted to talk about trauma and sleep, which we can experience trauma and sleep problems on a continuum in terms of severity, duration, and frequency of those symptoms. And I really feel like this is important due to any personal stressors and trauma, and also most recently our collective exposure to trauma with the school shootings. Experiencing a potentially traumatic event is actually more common than we think. Research suggests that almost 90% of people are exposed to at least one potentially traumatic event during their lives. Now, not every traumatic event results in a clinical diagnosis of PTSD. However, we're learning that more and more sleep is an important part of both preventing PTSD, being fully diagnosed, or if you are diagnosed, to healing. So sleep is very important. So I want to start with the effects of trauma on the body, and then we'll move into other pieces of this. So when the brain anticipates a threat, it reacts quickly to protect itself from harm. There's an internal alarm system called the stress response, or that fight, flight, freeze response. And this triggers physiological changes throughout the body. A cascade of hormones are released, our muscles can tense, our heart rate increases, and breathing becomes more rapid as the body prepares to defend against different threats. Now, after the threat or traumatic experience has ended, the body's stress response begins to return to baseline. Initial reactions vary and are all considered normal and healthy responses to psychological trauma. And fortunately, we are incredibly resilient, and for the majority of people, even the most challenging reactions to traumatic experiences will lessen with time, and the body and mind integrate the experience and heal. If these symptoms persist over time, if they interfere with school, work, relationships, then seeking help is important, because the brain's natural information processing system may be in a state of overwhelm and need assistance to move towards health. So let's talk now and shift into the impact of trauma on sleep. So sleep problems are common after traumatic experiences. Alertness, hyperarousal related to the effects of the body's stress response often contribute to the symptoms of insomnia. We're kind of alert, and so it's harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. So they can wake up during the night, and once they wake up, it can be harder to fall back asleep. So what they refer to as the whole sleep process during the night is called sleep architecture. So trauma can affect sleep architecture, which means that it can change how the body moves through the different sleep cycles and stages. Although experts are still working to understand exactly what is going on, rapid eye movement sleep appears to be the stage most affected by trauma. And REM sleep is important for the storage of memories and processing emotions. And we know this from a neuroscience standpoint. And as an EMDR therapist, we also know that that is an important piece of healing and recovery, with part of EMDR with the bilateral stimulation. We won't go into a lot of that today, but REM is really important. So, distressing dreams and nightmares are common to trauma. Survivors often have dreams about the traumatic event that are either directly related, like a replay of the experience, or they contain trauma related emotion, content, and symbols. Researchers hypothesize that trauma related dreams are caused by the brain's fear response combined with that hyperarousal, and really represent the mind's attempt at integrating that traumatic memory. So, neuroscience and psychologists believe that dreams help to integrate our experiences into long term memory. And this is a process that we call memory consolidation. Dreams may reflect the body's attempt to cope and learn from these experiences. And they can simulate threatening events and allow us to try and work out different responses. Being exposed to threats while safely asleep may actually reduce fears and allow access to other areas of the brain important in being creative about the solutions and decision making. So while sleep issues after traumatic experiences can be distressing, they're also important because it's an opportunity for the brain to heal from the trauma. And one of the things that can happen is, if it is starting to get in overwhelm, that if we address that in early treatment of trauma, it can reduce the risk of developing PTSD. So it's when the brain gets stuck and overwhelmed, that it can't move towards healing, that intervention is needed. So how do you know if you're stuck? Is there like a time frame or a certain thing you should pay attention to? Sleep problems and other stress reactions are expected in the first few weeks following a traumatic event. Most people will bounce back without any kind of treatment or intervention. When problems last for more than a month, it's called PTSD. So trouble sleeping and nightmares are two of the primary symptoms of PTSD to watch for in that early first 30 days. But you don't have to wait until there's a problem. EMDR has early intervention protocols to help you and your brain move towards healing. You don't have to get stuck in the overwhelm. If you're not sure, it never hurts to contact an EMDR therapist and check it out. That's what we're here for. It is never too early to ask and check it out. EMDR can target the event, it can target the nightmares, or both. So let's talk about tips for sleeping after trauma. Okay, it is normal, like we said, to have this impact on your quantity and quality of sleep. So we want you to be patient, but there are some things that you can do during this time. The first thing, protecting your mind and sleep. Do not read or watch upsetting news reports or TV shows in the evening. I would go even a step further to tell you to limit it altogether. We can get vicarious trauma, experience trauma, from watching the news repeatedly with the images and everything that goes along with it. Repeated exposure to traumatic content and images is traumatic in and of itself. So I want you to try and balance being informed with protecting yourself when possible. Sometimes when we just read like a newspaper and can push out the images and the emotional content, it's easier to stay informed, and it's not always as traumatic on the mind and body. Here are some tips for sleeping as you heal from trauma as well. Maintain your usual sleep schedule. Routine is very important. Going to bed and getting up at the same time every day, even on the weekend, helps your body be more prepared for when it's time to sleep. keeping a cool, dark, and quiet sleep environment, reserving the bedroom for sex and sleep only helps signal to your body that this room and the bed is for those two events, and it helps you sleep better. Creating a felt sense of safety. Traumatic events often leave us feeling unsafe, which can make it challenging to feel calm enough to fall asleep. Consider what changes you would need to make in your sleeping environment to feel safer while you're recovering from any kind of trauma. Getting regular exercise helps tame the hyperarousal that is common with trauma. This is good for any sleep hygiene, but particularly when you're battling some sleep issues, is to avoid screens, any screens, phones, iPads, all of that, television, at least an hour before bed. Engage your body's relaxation response. This can include relaxation exercises, a warm bath, other ways to engage that calm or relaxation response before bed is really helpful. Avoid napping. Avoid caffeine after 10 a.m. And that one I know I'm probably going to have people cringing about. And avoid alcohol, which can also impact sleep. I see it all the time where people experience a traumatic day or a traumatic event, and the first thing they want to do is grab a glass of wine or an adult beverage. And that actually can negatively impact your recovery and sleep. Don't force sleep. If you find yourself tossing and turning for more than 20 minutes, it may be best to get out of bed and find a relaxing activity instead. Reading, a warm bath, listening to music, and then going back to bed again when you have that felt sense of fatigue or tiredness again, when you feel a little sleepy. So today, the hard truth is that almost 90% of people are exposed to at least one potentially traumatic event during their lives. And this is why I'm so passionate about trauma treatment and recovery, and why I get so excited about EMDR and how helpful it can be in terms of early intervention and also ongoing treatment for trauma. You can prevent PTSD if you address that trauma early. So some takeaways for today. Addressing sleep is critical to fully heal. And number 2, an essential aspect of healing from trauma is knowing when to ask for support. Doctors and counselors are trained in helping. They're trained in helping people cope and heal from the consequences of traumatic events. You do not have to suffer alone. Help is available. And you don't have to wait until it's bad enough that you feel like that's warranted. So seeking counseling is a brave and courageous act that unfortunately still has a lot of stigma associated with it. Healing can be quicker, more efficient if you seek help early. Thank you so much for being patient with me today as I ran into some issues getting started. I will go back in and add just a brief intro to the content here. If you have any questions, feel free to message me or reach out through the website at creeksidecounseling-wellness.com. Take care. Have a great week.